What is going on, YouTube? This is Jim back with another video, here to give you guys a spoiler-free review of Timespinners. Now, Timespinners is available currently on GamePass for both PC and for console. I played it on PC, but there was really no graphical improvement to be made. This game is a throwback to those old side-scrolling pixel art type games. Reminds me of something from the early SNES era. Actually had a very strong vibe of Final Fantasy III, to me at least. Plays a lot like Rogue Legacy, if you're familiar with that game. And if not, just think of a traditional side-scrolling platformer where you get different abilities. You have a basic attack, you get a double jump, you get a sprint, and you work your way through multiple levels and multiple times in order to right the wrongs of your family. Now, what's cool about this plot and what really hooked me instantly to this game was the fact that as a time spinner, somebody who's been basically gifted and brought up in this ability to use this machine, what you do is you are basically a messenger for your tribe. So as your tribe, thrives and lives, they're at war with another tribe. And time spinners are raised to, in the event of danger, create and use this machine to go back in time to try to prevent bad things from happening to their tribe. Now, ultimately what happens is things go a little bit astray, as you can imagine, and you are basically sacrificed in a sense. You go on a one-way trip. You're not coming back. And this is all in the first couple minutes of the game, so don't feel like I'm ruining anything for you. I'm not going to be spoilers. I won't do that because I want you to play it. So what happens is that it's a really cool plot at first where you're basically a selfless person at this point. You can't go back home. You've said goodbye to your friends. You've said goodbye to your family. And you are now doing what's best for what you think are your people. And along the way, the game will introduce you to both sides of the war. And you will begin to understand that things aren't always as they appear to be. And it's a really cool concept. Unfortunately, the game kind of falls apart halfway through, and a lot of these really cool themes are just gone. And I don't really understand why this happened. The writing is very, very strong, considering it's just a little text block and you're reading no voiceovers or anything like that. The writing is really strong, and it does convey a really strong message, and because of the amazing music in this game, it really does give you an emotional experience. And I will admit, beating this game, I won't say I teared up, but I was pretty, it got me in the feels. It really did. There's multiple endings, depending on what choice you choose to make, and there's also different quests and stuff you can do along the way that will slowly change the world around you, too, because later on in the game, you do get the ability to teleport between two different points in time. So the name Timespinners, the whole plot is about time. Unfortunately, the game doesn't even capitalize on that piece of it. One of the abilities you do get is the ability to stop time temporarily. You can use it mostly as a platforming ability. You freeze an enemy and then you jump on their head and then you jump to another area. There's no boss mechanics that require you to use time freezing. There's no puzzles that require you to use it, and largely you're going to forget about it, which is kind of silly since the name of the game and the whole point of the game was to be a time master. So it really does miss the mark on a few things. Despite the fact that the plot's a little hokey, I think it does wrap itself up well at the end. If you are paying attention and collecting all the ancillary computer terminals and nodes and memories of your mother, you will start to understand why you came to be and who you are and how you play into this greater conflict between these two tribes. And it really does have a very nice story to it if you invest in it. If you play this purely as just a platformer, you're going to enjoy it as well because the music is really, really good and it's constantly going in the background with tons and tons of different variants depending on different parts of the world you're in, different times you're in. And you're also going to enjoy just the second-to-second gameplay, which I said earlier really reminds me of Rogue Legacy. it's definitely a very tight combat experience, and I always felt in complete control of my character, and I really liked the way that combat flowed. You collect these orbs that rotate around your body, and you basically throw these orbs at people. They could be fire imbued, they could be ice imbued, lightning, they can turn into swords, guns, hammers. There's a slew of combinations, and you can quickly on the fly change what your loadout is. There's a light RPG element to it where you pick up different pieces of gear, such as helmets and chest pieces, to augment your character. And you also get these ultimate abilities that allow you to charge up and unleash a devastating attack, like a wall of fire, or a giant sword, or a laser beam. It's really, really cool. But there's that other part of the game that just still doesn't feel finished, that lingers in your mind the entire time. And there's a lot of story threads in there. Particularly, you get this thing called a familiar, which is this little dragon that flies around. I found 3, there may be more. There's supposed to be a story element in there, but it's almost like the developers forgot about it, because when you first meet the familiar, he doesn't speak. But as you start to interact in the world, he begins to understand things better and become more fluent. But it's never explained why he's there. It's never explained what his role is, and he's largely forgotten halfway through the game. And I guess if anything, that's my takeaway from this game, is that it really kind of diametrically opposes with itself. On one hand, you have a phenomenal soundtrack, a great art style, great moment-to-moment gameplay, and a great ending. On the other hand, you have everything else in between, and it's hard to kind of invest yourself into it if you're not willing to just kind of accept that a lot of story threads just aren't going to go anywhere. And you're going to meet people that seem like they're important, but they're not, and they're just written out of the story. And it's not until the end does it kind of piece itself together in a pretty good way, I thought, that kind of makes me recommend it over not recommending it. But I feel like had more care and more time and more, I don't even want to say polish, because the game doesn't need any polish. It's really, really well done. But I feel like story-wise, if somebody could have just really sat down and thought about it a little bit more, they probably could have made this an even more amazing experience. And I could have totally seen another universe where this game is definitely on that upper tier game of the year type candidate, because it really does tug at your emotions at the end, and it really does have the foundations to be a really, really good game. But something along the way gets lost, and ultimately I think it kind of just doesn't live up to the hype that it should have. But despite all that, it's going to take you about 10 hours to beat if you decide to invest that long in it. And it's on Game Pass. I know there's a ton of games coming out very, very soon, but if you got a little bit of time and you want to sneak in a pretty good platformer that's got a story that's worth waiting until the end, check out Timespinners. With that, I'm going to close out this video. Leave a comment below. Let me know if you beat Timespinners. Let me know if I missed something in this review. Try to keep it spoiler-free for everybody else who hasn't played it yet. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.